Thursday morning is going to be a very important practice for Dave Canales and his Carolina Panthers as the New York Jets are in town for joint practices. And considering we didn't get to see the starters last Thursday, a lot of answers to questions that we have should be answered. We'll talk about what to expect on Thursday right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays throughout the rest of the preseason and through the regular season, I'm right here answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. So either at me or DM me. But of course, follow me on Twitter at Julian Council to get your questions in for next week's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. And I'm pumped up, man. Thursday morning joint practice with the New York Jets. Panthers facing off against a team that they faced off against last year during the preseason, and for one joint practice. The final one got rained out. The Jets stayed in practice in Spartanburg. The Panthers came back home as they closed out training camp. I'm excited to see what Dave Canales' offense looks like against that Jets defense. I'm excited to see what this Panthers defense, year two of Jerry Rivera, with a lot of pieces that already know the defense from their time spent with him, either in LA or in Denver. I'm excited to see what that defense looks like on Thursday morning. Going to be there, boots on the ground. A lot of stuff coming for y'all later on Thursday. And if you're a sicko and you want to check me out all across the platforms, I'm going to be on here. I got a TV hit with WCNC locally in Charlotte. I'm going on the radio in Baton Rouge. My guy, Matt Moscona, could be all over the place on Thursday. And these are kind of the days that get my juices flowing. I'm really excited to see what this team looks like, even though, yeah, I have my reservations, my doubts about what they're going to be this season. But still, this is a great opportunity for Canales, young into his tenure, to get an understanding of who his team is, the culture that they're building, and to move forward into that preseason game on Saturday, then next Saturday against the Bills, and then get this roster together and focus on week one against New Orleans down there, and of course, New Orleans. But before we get into what to look for from both the Panthers offense and the defense on Thursday morning against New York, let's go back to Wednesday's practice, day 14 of 15 training camp practices. Thursday will be the final one, and then the Panthers will go back to really doing the same thing, just won't be in camp. They'll actually be able to go home. No longer are they confined to the walls of the residence in there right outside of Bank of America Stadium. But Dave Canales gives an update on a few things that happened on Wednesday, day off on Tuesday after having a shortened practice on Monday. Dave let us know that Dane Jackson, the Panthers starting corner opposite of J.C. Horn, had his hamstring tighten up during 1v1s, which means he's likely not going to be out there on Thursday. Tough break for the Panthers, knowing that that is a position that you don't want to have a guy like Dane Jackson down. I know people are still wanting to see Stephon Gilmore come to Carolina or the Panthers to do something. And even though Lamar Jackson and DiCaprio, Boodle, Deshaun Jameson to a lesser extent have shown that there's more depth there at that outside corner position than originally thought by me and plenty of other people out there, you may be one of those in that same boat. They still don't want to have one of their starters out. They need to probably still add somebody down the road. I don't think the way that Lamar Jackson and Boodle have played is going to preclude them from wanting to do that. But still, good opportunity for those guys potentially on Thursday, but not ideal that yet another one of these soft tissue injuries has crept up. We've seen calf injuries, we've seen hamstring injuries, there's groin injuries. All of these things have happened over the last couple of weeks since the Panthers entered camp at the end of July, and Dane Jackson is the latest, and we'll keep up with his situation moving forward. Nash Jensen, Panthers backup guard, unlikely to be on the 53, probably more of a practice squad guy, depending upon how this offense coaching staff sees him. He's dealing with some soreness in his Achilles. They went through some testing. He appears to be fine. Damian Lewis, he was out the last couple of days dealing with a family matter. He was back out there on Wednesday, not in pads, but he was still out there more for conditioning. We'll see if he's going to be ready to go on Thursdays. He's been dealing with a shoulder, and that does not appear to be the issue, just more so that he wasn't around. And I'm really thinking they're probably going to try and incorporate him on Thursday morning against that Jets defensive line. Then Diontae Johnson. This is not one of the ones that Dave Canales brought us abreast to once we spoke to him on Wednesday. I guess I wasn't there, but once the media spoke to him on Wednesday, it was brought up by Mike Kay later on. Diontae Johnson, apparently, he's dealing with a mild groin strain and currently is listed as day-to-day. I'm guessing that the Panthers are going to play this one pretty tight and not want to, or safely, and not want to have him out there on Thursday or on Saturday night, which is disappointing. Not seeing Bryce Young with this top target, but also may be an opportunity for some other guys to step up against this Jets defense on Thursday morning, and I'm excited to see what that may look like, but not ideal, obviously, for Diontae Johnson to be dealing with an injury like Dane Jackson. That's two starters, unlikely to be out there on Thursday and on Saturday as well, and now we're dealing with injuries towards the end of preseason, which is coming up just a week from now. I guess 8-9 days from now, preseason is going to be over. You don't want to have Dane Jackson, Diontae Johnson, both those guys missing time with these injuries, along with some of the other guys that there's still concerns about, like Amari Barno and DJ Wonnum, who they were asked about again on Wednesday. Still no update as far as where they're at, as far as a timeline. So that's still something to be concerned about heading into this game on Saturday. And as they close up the preseason and try to look towards 53 and the start of the regular season. A couple of other things. The defense appeared to win today yet again. That's kind of concerning in a way where it's been more takeaways. Now that also, it's twofold. You can look at it from the positive spin of the defense. They are setting out to get more takeaways. They did not do that last year. Last in the NFL in takeaways, and to be able to see them getting some interceptions. Got one on Monday off of Bryce Young. Got another one again on Wednesday off of Bryce Young. It's good to see that. But offensively, you don't want to see your quarterback turn the football over. I was asked about this on the mailbag on Wednesday, whether Bryce Young was going to have less interceptions this season or not. And possibly they're not going to throw the ball as much as they did last year, but possibly he could throw more. We'll see. Dave Canales didn't really seem to be that concerned, saying that in practice, this is when you're going to take more risk, going to try things out, and interceptions in that time period is not that big of a deal, especially when you know like this is your guy. So yes, you want him to be a little bit more aggressive in a practice setting than he would be in the game. We'll see though if that carries over to Thursday's practice and of course Saturday's game if Bryce does play. And speaking of that, Dave said that he will wait until after practice on Thursday to see who's available to them to play on Saturday night. And possibly we'll see the starters. He was asked where he stands in terms of joint practices versus the preseason, where they get better work done in joint practices, where if there is worthwhile to have your guys out there on Saturday night. He said, quote, "I don't need to make any declarations about what we're going to do. Let's just take it week by week and make sure that we have a good week of practice, and then what we can do that's smart for the whole team in terms of going into these games." And he did talk about it. There is value in these guys going through walkthroughs, going through the preparation of being ready for game day and going out there and actually playing during a live game setting. And there's also value in what they're doing on Thursday against the Jets in an environment where he has a relationship with Robert Saleh. Also, you look at the other side of the ball, Ejiro Evero, his best friend is Nathaniel Hackett, which is why he was in Denver a couple of years ago as his defensive coordinator. There's familiarity with both of these coaching staffs, and that should be able to breed competition. As Dave said, you want to beat your best friends and when you get competitive in anything. And I bet that he wants to go out there and kick Robert Saleh's ass, just like Nathaniel Hackett and Ejiro Evero want to do the opposite against each other on Thursday when they get out there on the field. So that is kind of an update from Wednesday's practice, as now the attention is on Thursday morning's joint practice with the Jets. And we'll talk about it here on the other side. First, looking at the offense and what I'm going to be looking for. 3 things. Then after that, we'll look at 3 things with the defense I'll be looking out for when I'm out there on Thursday morning in Uptown Charlotte. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip a leg day or a therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapy and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip a therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Last Thursday, Dave Canales gave the spotlight to his backups, and unfortunately for the majority of them, they didn't really bask in that spotlight, as only guys like Alex Cook and Eku Leota and Lamar Jackson really shined on Thursday evening in New England in that preseason opening loss to the Patriots. But Thursday morning, the Jets are in town, and now it's our first opportunity to see the Panthers' first-team offense and defense against another team, and a team in New York, whether you buy into the hype or not, is a team that's going to tell themselves they are AFC East Division title contenders. And if you can win that division with Buffalo and with Miami in it, with Tua and with Josh Allen, you may have a chance to actually contend for the Super Bowl. Will they do that? We will see. We're not totally concerned about that here in Carolina, but a good test for Dave Canales in his first year to go against his buddy Robert Saleh and his team on Thursday for joint practice. He's going to take a look at both the offense and the defense. 3 things each that I'm looking at heading into Thursday's joint practice. Let's start off first with the offense and what I want to see. As we know, this is a unit that was terrible last year, and a unit that needs to be much better up front, at quarterback, out wide, really everywhere. This team has to take a major step forward to have confidence heading into 2025 and beyond, in the pieces here and also with the coaching staff that has now been assembled and tasked with the job of saving Bryce Young and just putting together a competent offense. Not even a competent, but a good offense at the end of the day. First thing I'm looking at, the Panthers' offensive line was atrocious last season, and the first alarm bells were ringing this time last year when they faced off against the Jets during joint practices. We got to watch it, whether you're in person, but later on HBO's Hard Knocks, where Quinnen Williams was counting not 9, not 10, but 11 sacks against a porous Panthers interior offensive line, which was composed last year of Bradley Bozeman at center, Brady Christensen at left guard, and then at the time at right guard, they were putting Cade Mays in there, they're putting Chandler Zavala in, they were just trying to figure out who could help them at that spot. As we know, Christensen no longer a starter, Bradley Bozeman no longer here, Zavala fighting to make the team, Cade Mays currently injured with that AC sprain in his shoulder. Now they have Austin Corbett, who was out last year around this time, playing center. They brought in Robert Hunt on a $100 million contract, Damian Lewis on another big-time contract to play left guard, and they've completely revamped this interior offensive line, trying to model the Drew Brees Saints as they have a smaller quarterback, and you cannot have that pressure coming up the middle, and they need to be able to take on monsters like a guy in Quinnen Williams, who absolutely made a mockery of this interior offensive line a year ago at Wofford. That cannot happen on Thursday morning. This is really their first real test. The Panthers' defensive interior, I've been honest with y'all, outside of Derek Brown, I'm not impressed by them. A'Shawn Robinson is more of a run stopper, and if he can do that this year, that's great. Shai Tuttle was not good last year. If you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers alone, he has regressed every single season he's been in the NFL. How is that possible? I do not know. He must be better this season for this team to take a step forward, both offensively and defensively, just overall as a team. So this is going to be really the time where they get a good test when you have a player like Quinnen Williams, who's more of a pass rusher from the interior than Derrick Brown is. And that's one gripe I think Panther fans or any fan would have on Derrick Brown, is that he's not really a pass rusher, but he's still a really solid player. The Jets, maybe not as formidable as they were a year ago. Guys like Bryce Hall are gone. Michael Clemens no longer around. They do have Javon Kinlaw, who started off his career at the San Francisco 49ers. He went to South Carolina, former first-round pick. Jermaine Johnson, also a former first-round pick out of Florida State. Will McDonald was a big pick for them last year. Those are some younger guys that have some experience, but also are pretty solid players that are going to test this offensive front, and especially the guys on the outside. It's not just the interior. Is Ike Ekwonu going to be able to protect? And you look at Taylor Moton, he's had some moments so far that have not been sterling during training camp. I have not been out there for those moments that he's had. I want to see what he looks like. As the Panthers, we saw last week, that offensive tackle depth didn't look great. But as I've told y'all, but Derek Traore, he ain't going on the team, y'all. Ricky Lee didn't help himself last week, and I would guess right now probably not on the team. Brady Christensen, he would be that backup tackle, as he's the sixth offensive lineman on this team. You also get Josh Nijman. He's a very long way away from being ready to go in Carolina. So there is a little concern as far as the depth goes at offensive tackle. Eventually, provided that they're all healthy, when Josh Nijman comes back, I think they'll be fine. But you need your top guys like Ike Ekwonu, who really rests, had a sophomore slump, if you want to call it that, last year. He has to show something on Thursday morning. So does Taylor Moton, who hasn't had the best camp so far. So how do they protect? How are they able to run the ball as well? Those are two things I am absolutely looking for on Thursday morning with the Panthers offensive line against a pretty stout Jets defensive line. Number two, you look at the offense, you look at the quarterback. Sorry, you look at the offensive line, you look at the quarterback. Those have been two things that simultaneously over the last couple of years have just not been good enough for Carolina. O-line, just talk about them. Quarterback Bryce Young did not play well a year ago. Now he's going up against a defense that was top 5 when looking at EPA. 3rd in the NFL overall, 4th in pass defense EPA, and that is going to test Bryce Young and his Panthers offense overall on Thursday. Bryce has had a few mistakes the last couple of days. Threw an interception on Wednesday, threw an interception on Monday. As I said earlier, Dave Canales kind of brushed it off as you got to be aggressive. Don't really mind trying things in practice. This is the setting to do it. I would hope, though, when you get to joint practices that you want to dial it back a little bit and understand that this is more of a game setting, different team, opposite of you. They're going to give you different looks than what you've seen throughout the entirety of training camp so far. I want to see Bryce going out there and having that connection with Adam Thielen again. Diontae Johnson, unlikely to be out there as he's day-to-day with that groin injury. Don't think they're going to want to play him. I want to see him having that connection with Xavier Legette. Jonathan Mingo, I want to see him operating this offense with confidence. And if he gets flushed, I want to see some of that off-structure kind of stuff that we saw back at Alabama, which they tried to incorporate late last season when it was already over and Frank Reich and that whole staff were cooked. I want to see Bryce Young look confident in the system and make plays, like be a playmaker, be what you were when you won the Heisman Trophy and what led the Panthers to select you number 1 overall. And this is a great opportunity for him to do that against this Jets defense that was pretty damn stout last year in 2023. Number 3, the backup wide receivers. I'm not really that concerned about the run game. I think Chuba Hubbard is going to run the ball hard. I think Miles Sanders, he'll be better this season. Can't be worse than what he was last year. I guess he could. I just don't see that happening. Whenever Jonathan Brooks comes back, we'll see what impact he makes. I'm not concerned about the run game. Not really focused in on the tight ends heading into this joint practice, as well as I don't think that high of them anyway. It's going to take some time for Jadeveon Sanders and all of that. Got to just get healthy first and foremost when it comes to that unit. But wide receivers, the depth, that is a concern. Jonathan Mingo, Terrace Marshall Jr. did not inspire confidence last week when they played in that preseason game against New England. 2 drops, back-to-back plays. Unacceptable. Terrace Marshall wanted to be traded, didn't get traded. Now he's out here not catching the ball. Don't care what the conditions are like. Jonathan Mingo, he's had a good camp so far. Nice story about him speaking to Steve Smith Sr., asking for some advice. And, you know, Steve's not going to sugarcoat things. Very frank with him and telling him what he needed to do better. And Mingo came with a better understanding of the league. Things have slowed down for him. When you got into the game last week, as we saw, he didn't make the play. Let it hit him right in the chest. Catch the ball with your hands, son. You cannot have that happen. So I want to see what Mingo looks like. I want to see what Marshall looks like, but also Xavier Legette, he's back healthy. He had that scare with the foot. Turned out MRI was negative. No breaks. Great break for the Carolina Panthers. No pun intended, of course. And now he's back out there healthy. Got in there with the ones a little bit on Wednesday. Bryce had a completion to him. He needs to start to show something. I know that it's still early on in his rookie tenure, but as a first-round pick, Panthers traded up. Yes, they wanted to get the fifth-year option, but also because they really like this guy. They believe that he is worthy potentially one day of getting that money and being someone who can be their top receiver in this offense with Bryce Young as his quarterback. We got to start seeing that connection. We've seen a lot of Diontae Johnson. We know what Bryce and Adam Thielen can do together. Haven't seen enough from Mingo. Haven't seen enough from Terrace Marshall in an actual game setting. Xavier Legette, the door is wide open for you. Dave Canales said, show us. So show us on Thursday what you are capable of doing in this offense and take over that wide receiver 3 spot. Those are the things I'm looking for. The Panthers offensive line, how do they protect? How do they run the ball? Bryce Young, well, everything about this organization right now was about Bryce Young and him showing that he is the franchise. If he's not, then that's bad news for you and for me, for Bryce, and for Dave Canales and the coaching staff, as they were hired to fix Bryce Young and then the backup wide receivers. The Panthers need someone other than Diontae Johnson and Adam Thielen to make plays. And we saw last year with Miles Sanders, I'm not trying to alarm anyone, had a groin injury during preseason, missed some time, and was never the guy the Panthers thought he was going to be heading into the year. Offensive line play also attributed to that, but still, we did not see the Miles Sanders that we expected to see last season here in Carolina. I'm hoping that Diontae Johnson is not going to have an issue at all, that it's only one of those day-to-day things like Canales is saying, that it's nothing to be too alarmed about. But still, if anything were to happen to him or Thielen, how much confidence right now through 14 practices, one preseason game, do you have in Mingo, in Marshall, and Legette, and the rest of that unit? I don't have a ton of it, and I would like to be able to gain some out of Thursday's practice and on Saturday, and then next Saturday against Buffalo before they wrap up things in the preseason. So those are the things I'm looking for offensively versus the Jets on Thursday morning. What about the things I'm looking for defensively during joint practice? I'll tell you here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But with the playoffs over, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. The Olympics are over in Paris. We're only a week away from the beginning of college football season, week 0. Also, we got preseason NFL, but the regular season's not here just yet. And whether we have the Olympics or we have Major League Baseball going on, with FanDuel, they let me keep the sports going whenever I want to. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so I talked about what I want to see from the Panthers offense, or at least what I'll be watching from the Panthers offense on Thursday, and it will be a little difficult. The sightlines aren't the best when going to Panthers camp, not like they used to be, where you could be on that hill and be able to see the entirety of the field there at Wofford, even for the media. We're in the end zone, and if things are all the way down the field on like the left side, we can't get down there. Now, if it's on the right side, always down there, we can go up to the other hill and see it. So it's going to be kind of difficult for your boy to go out there and look at both the offense and defense. I'm only one man, only one set of eyes, but I'll find a way to do it. And I'll, of course, talk to people who are there and try to get their perspectives on things that I may miss. But these are the things I'm looking to see, or at least I'm tracking on Thursday morning when the Panthers face off against the Jets with joint practices. First off, it's a line of scrimmage game. We started off offensively looking at the offensive line. I'm going to start off by looking at the defensive line. The Jets have a reworked offensive line, just like the Panthers. They have Tyron Smith, longtime Dallas Cowboys tackle. They got John Simpson, Joe Tipman, Elijah Vera-Tucker. He's back off of injuries. Morgan Moses, he's back here. The Jets O-line, some questions about just how good they are. Aaron Rodgers only lasted 4 plays last year. The question really outside of that, had he not been injured immediately, would he have lasted anyways, considering just how bad that O-line was last season? Bryce Young, sacked 62 times. He survived. They went out there to fix the offensive line here in Carolina. Same thing happening in New York with Joe Douglas going out there to try to fix that offensive line for Aaron Rodgers, as they are all in on this year trying to win a Super Bowl. This defensive line, though, I have my questions. I love Derek Brown, obviously, fantastic player. No one can doubt that. Going to be an all-pro candidate, I believe, this year after setting NFL records for most tackles by a defensive lineman in the history of the game. Now, they haven't been tracking the stat that long, but still, he's outstanding. Cannot debate that at all. A'Shawn Robinson, he's somebody that comes in to be a run stopper. He's been around the league for a couple of teams. Think he can be a solid player. Definitely an upgrade from Deshaun Williams, who was here last year, and Carolina followed over Jero Verro from Denver here to Carolina. He's no longer here. He's now in Buffalo because that's how things work. Shai Tuttle, he was disappointing last year as a free agent. Now there's some other guys like TJ Smith, who have come in, who have gotten some opportunities, which I was surprised by that. You have also Nick Thurman from a year ago who played well, Brian Ray. I want to see what this defensive line looks like outside of Derek Brown. I know what he can do. What about everybody else? What are they going to provide this year? They must be better against the run. The Jets are going to be a team with Breece Hall. They're going to want to run the football this season like they have in the past. And having a defensive coach, you're always going to want to run the ball. So how are they going to do against the run? They were really bad against it last year. Having Shaq Thompson back healthy, that helps. Josie Jewell out there, that helps. And Jadeveon Clowney, of course, I think that's an upgrade in terms of being able to set the edge on the outside, something that Brian Burns was the best at in his career, but was better at getting after the passer. Clowney is an upgrade in terms of stopping the run. How much has this defensive line upgraded this offseason? We'll get a glimpse of that on Thursday when they face off against the Jets during joint practice. Number 2, pass rush. I don't believe the Panthers have one. Will they prove me wrong just for one morning? It's only going to be one day. Now, it won't really matter what happens on Saturday or what happens next Saturday against Buffalo, what happens in the 17 regular season games. That's really what's going to tell the story for how good this defense really can be. A defense that wants to be able to stop the run, which I think they should be much better at. A defense that has a secondary that they want to accentuate their skills. At some point in time, you got to be able to get after the passer. And if Aaron Rodgers is going to be sitting back there all day, no one's touching him, they're going to get picked apart. Don't care if JC's healthy. Don't care if Dane Jackson's out. Don't care who's back there in the secondary. How many perceived starters Jero Verro believes he has. If his defense has no pass rush like last year, they're going to get torched. And they're not going to be able to get out the field. That will be a problem this season again. So, and it's not like they got torched passing defense-wise. They were fine. They were middle of the road. It was run defense where they really struggled. I think, though, run defense will be better, but they are a little bit more susceptible at corner this season than I believe maybe even a year ago. But even though they still didn't have JC, it's hard. So many guys are out. It's hard to really know what position necessarily take, as it's always there's competing interests in my mind about the things I'm trying to say here to you all, if you understand where I'm coming from, which you probably don't. But pass rush, first good look at Jadeveon Clowney, especially against another team. And I think he's the best pass rusher on this team. I don't think he's an elite pass rusher, has never been that in the league, and that's okay. Doesn't have to be a double-digit sack guy, in my opinion. If he can get right there around the total he had last year, which would be right under 10, that's cool. I wouldn't necessarily expect that to be the case, just based off of really his history since leaving Houston, even if he is in a scheme where he's comfortable. But again, this is not a scheme where they're focused totally on getting after the passer and being aggressive in that manner. But what are his friends going to do? DJ Wonnum's not going to be out there. Murray Barno, he's not going to be out there. Echo Leota looked really good last week against Patriots. He's going to get some opportunities, I think, with the first team. What's he able to do? DJ Johnson, Caleb Chason, got to see something out of those guys if there's going to be any sort of confidence with the Panthers having to wait for DJ Wonnum to be healthy. And I still believe, like a corner, even where I feel better about corner and their depth, I still feel like they need to go out and try to bring someone in at pass rusher. Just how, at the very least, for appearances, I still don't think like they're going to bring anybody in who's going to just dramatically change the outcome of what this, there maybe raises the floor, but what is the ceiling truly for this pass rush this year? I still feel like the ceiling is going to be one of the worst in the NFL, just to be quite honest with y'all. And I know you don't want to hear that. Just let's be realistic here. So want to see what that pass rush looks like, if there is a pass rush at all against the Jets and their reworked offensive line on Thursday morning. Then finally, the third thing, backup corner. Dane Jackson doesn't appear to be able to practice as he's dealing with a hamstring. That means Lamar Jackson, who stepped up last week after Dave Canales called for him to do so, he played well in that preseason game. DiCaprio Boodle, he spent time as that third corner a couple times throughout training camp. Deshaun Jameson was better in the preseason game than he has been at times during practice. I want to see what those guys look like against an underwhelming Jets offensive wide receiver unit. Like Garrett Wilson's good. He's going to go up against JC the entire time, and I can't wait to see that battle. So that will be fun. Of course, I'll be watching that. But everybody else, though, I'm not impressed at all by Allen Lazard. He was a bad signing for them last season. They bring in a rookie, Malachi Corley. Xavier Gibson, he's back. These Jets receivers are unimpressive, and that's kind of one of the things. Like, this team believes that they can compete for a Super Bowl. Maybe they should have gone out there. Now, they did bring in Mike Williams, and he's still recovering from an ACL tear. And I did see that last week when he was activated off of PUP, that they still said, they being Robert Saleh, the head coach up in New York, that it was going to take some time for him to really be out there at practice. So they don't get to face off against Mike Williams, which would be beneficial to this backup cornerback room. I want to see them matching up and winning these battles. This is not the most talented wide receiver room outside of Garrett Wilson in the league. Like, you really look at what Carolina has, Diontae Johnson and Adam Thielen together healthy, and then the guys that behind them. Is there really that big of a discernible difference between the Jets non-top guys and the Panthers non-top guys? Probably not. So they've won plenty of battles against Terrace and against Mingo and against Leggett. Go out there, do the same thing. Go lock up some of these Jets guys and continue to show the kind of depth that they have at that position, which is still a surprise to me, but still an area I think that they should go out there and address. So defensive line, it's a line of scrimmage game. Need to see the guys not named Derek Brown show me something. Pass rush, don't believe it exists. Will I be proven correct, at least for a morning, or will I be proven wrong, at least for a morning? Would love to be proven wrong. Don't think that's going to be the case, but I'll be watching that either way, and really De'Javion Clowney and seeing what he can do. Then backup corner, Dane Jackson not going to be out there. Opportunities for guys like Lamar Jackson, DiCaprio Boodle, and Deshaun Jameson to try and solidify their spots on the roster this year in Carolina. Before we get out of here, quick roster move update. The Panthers signed defensive back Rudy Ford following a tryout. The corresponding move, the Panthers waived defensive back Clayton Isbell for the second time during training camp. Rudy Ford is a safety. Last 2 years spent in Green Bay, started 15 games across those 2 seasons. Only makes the safety room even deeper. They already have Jordan Fuller, Nick Scott, and Xavier Woods, who they see as starters. Xavier Rivera at least sees all those guys as starters. Alex Cook, he's been impressive. Sam Franklin Jr. right now dealing with that broken foot. He'll be back at some point this season. So adding in Rudy Ford to that room only makes that an even deeper unit, possibly already the deepest unit on the roster. Just got a little bit better of Rudy Ford now here. Remember a week ago, they put in a waiver claim for Caden Stearns from Denver, who had played for 1 year under Ejiro Evero. He did not pass his physical in Carolina. They released him. He's since signed elsewhere. They wanted to add another safety. They've done that successfully now with Rudy Ford, assuming that he's going to pass his physical. So we'll see how that goes. Defensive end, Kimoko Ture, he was on IR. He has now been released. Somebody they brought in, hoping could help them at outside linebacker, and that did not happen. I still believe they'll be in the market for someone over the course of the next couple of weeks. We are only 12 days away from the initial 53-man roster coming out here in Carolina. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where I will be back with you next Wednesday to answer your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions, either at me or DM me to get those questions into me really after the preseason game. But, you know, if you want to get into me now, go ahead and do that. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. And I'll talk to y'all really later on Thursday, as a lot of you will be watching this either on Wednesday or will be listening to this on Thursday. I'll be talking to you later today as I'll break down what I saw from the Panthers' final training camp practice, one where they'll be matched up against the New York Jets, and start looking ahead to the preseason game on Saturday night. So stay tuned for all that here on Locked On Panthers.